That is a great fish. My word.
So the last video I had was a carp fishing video. We caught a bunch of carp, and it was a great video. If you haven't seen that, go back and watch it now. And I decided to make these two videos as a follow-up for that video. So let's jump right into this video and start talking about rods. Today I'll be talking about 4 of my favorite rods for carp, 2 of which are imported carp rods from Europe, and the other 2 are rods that you can get almost anywhere in the United States. And later in this video we will talk about some more basic options. Here I have the 8-foot ESP carp rod imported from Europe. It's a great carp rod for the price. It's about $100. It has a durable EVA handle and it is extra long for casting distance. Makes a great carp rod. What I have on here is the Daiwa M-Cast, which I'll talk about later. My only complaint with this rod is that the guides are quite flimsy and bendable, but you can still handle fish quite large. As far as the action goes for this rod, it has a stiff backbone for casting and fighting large fish. This here is the ESP carp rod. It's the same as the 8-footer, it's just 10 feet. It's a bit beefier than the 8-footer. It has a very good backbone and it can handle large fish. Again, this rod is made by ESP. It has a similar guide and handle build, and it is designed for casting about 3 to 4 ounce weights, and it can cast them easily. The reel I have on here is the Daiwa Windcast, but like I said, I'll be talking about the reels later. For my bait casting rod for carp, I have the 8'6" medium heavy Berkeley lightning rod. It's moderate action. It's a little bit light for carp, but it can still cast pretty light weights. It's just an overall great rod for carp. The nice thing about this rod is that it is only about $40. It has pretty decent guides and it has a synthetic handle, and it also has a locking reel seat. Here's a little bit cheaper option I have for catfish and carp. I'm not going to be quite too brand specific. Overall, this is a well-built carp rod, which is always something you want to look for when picking out a carp rod. And when I'm picking out a carp rod, I'd rather pick a more durable rod than a rod that looks nice. Now that we've covered rods, let's move on to a few reels. Alright, so what I have here are 3 carp reels that I use the most, my 2 spinning reels, and my bait caster. The first spinning reel I have is the Daiwa M-Cast bait runner in the 5,000 size. Overall, it's a pretty well built reel. It has a smooth drag, and it's not the best for casting long distance, but overall it gets the job done. This reel has a full metal body and an adjustable bait runner. The bait runner is important because it lets the fish take line freely from the reel, so that you do not have to break or lose the rod. And once you start reeling, it will switch off. This reel can fit on most medium to medium heavy rods and can hold about 250 yards of 15-pound mono. This is the Daiwa Windcast bait runner reel in the 5,000 size. It has a very large spool designed for casting long distances, and overall is a very large reel. Because it is all metal, it is very bulky and heavy, but at least it has a collapsible handle. I would only recommend this reel on very heavy carp outfits. Both of these reels range in price from around $150 to $200. For my carp bait casting reel, I use this old Quantum. It's actually an old musky round reel, which we have repurposed for carp. As you can see, this reel does not have a bait runner, so we almost lose a rod because of it. Overall, this is a pretty standard round reel. It has a push button free spool on the side here, and it has an adjustable star drag. Overall, this is a pretty standard round reel. It has a push button free spool on the side here, and it has an adjustable star drag. Although you can no longer buy this reel, Abu Garcia and Shimano make great catfish reels that will do the same. Really quick, I want to mention this reel I got from Amazon. It is the Cast King Brutus, and if you get it in larger sizes, it makes an okay carp reel. You can buy it for about $40, but it is pretty plasticky and it does not hold a lot of line. For line, I'll use anything from 8 to 15 pound mono and around 30 to 40 pound braid. For smaller fish in clear water, I'll use 8 to 10 pound line, but for bigger fish, I'll use 15 to 30 pound. For carp, brand is not as important, but Berkley makes good, inexpensive mono, but you never want to go too cheap with carp line. The only reason I'll use braid is if I need the extra line capacity or strength. The reason why I do not use it a lot is because it can get very expensive. Now my brother Garrett is going to talk about some more basic and affordable options for carp.
So at this point you're probably thinking you need all kinds of specialty gear to fish for carp, but you really don't. You can get by with the same gear that you'd use for bass, walleye, catfish, any species really. So I'm going to show you a few rods and reels that I use for other species like bass, and how you can use those setups to fish for carp. So any rod that you have that's between say 6 and 8 feet is going to work just fine as long as it's got enough backbone to handle 1.5 to 1 ounce weights. For a reel, you're going to want kind of like a medium or smaller size reel. The most important thing about it is that it's got a smooth drag and good line capacity. So to start, I kind of have my all-purpose spinning rod here. This is the Cabela's Tournament Series rod. It's not a real expensive rod, around $40 or $50. On it is a Shimano Symmetry reel. It's got the drag in the back instead of the front here. But this rod, again, I use for bass, steelhead, panfish, any kind of fishing really. And I've also caught plenty of carp on this. It's just a standard 6.5 foot spinning rod. It's got like a medium light power, nothing super special. So you're gonna want to be able to hold at least probably 150 yards of 10-pound monofilament. That way you can also use 8-pound or even 12-pound if you're fishing for larger fish. So next I have my kind of all-purpose bass bait caster. I use it for walleye, bass, steelhead, anything really. It's a St. Croix Mojo bass, medium action, medium power. It's 7 foot, I believe. It's not real heavyweight, but it can handle up to 1 ounce of lead. On the reel, I've just got an Ebu Garcia Revo. It's one of their older reels. I've just got some 30-pound braid on here. Makes just a fine carp reel. So yeah, any simple bait casting or spinning rod or reel, those are gonna probably work just fine for carp as long as they've got enough line capacity and as long as the rod's got a good enough backbone to handle larger fish. Another thing I wanted to mention is that you don't need a bait runner to detect bites from carp. You can simply open the bail with a standard spinning reel, or I found that doesn't seem to hook them as well. So a lot of the times I'll just keep the bail closed, and if the rod bends over then there's a fish on there. That seems to yield a lot better hookups. Also, I would recommend one of these reels with a drag in the back. That way you can set it really loose in this position, and then put it in your rod holder. If it starts taking out line, then you can instantly tighten it up a lot and you'll be in a position to fight the fish. But if you just have a standard spinning reel with a drag in the front, I wouldn't worry about it. Just set it in the rod holder with your drag set like you normally would to fight a fish. You need to learn when to let the fish run and when you can bring in some line, because if your drag is set too loose, it's likely that'll take out all your line. And if it's too tight, the line will easily break if it gets any frays or nicks in it. I know me and my brother, when we started carp fishing, we had a lot of trouble breaking off the fish, and that's mostly because we had our drag set way too tight. So we would only land about half of the fish that we hooked when we were carp fishing with these lighter rigs. If you want to see a video on how to fight fish sometime in the future, let us know in the comments down below. So yeah, don't let all this fancy carp gear intimidate you. It's definitely going to help a little, but it's far from necessary. You'll land plenty of carp just with your standard gear. Next video, I'm going to be talking a little bit about some very basic baits and rigs. So look forward to that, and then I'm going to hand it over to Dean to close out this video.
Alright guys, that's going to be the end of today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a lot from it. Me and my brother had a lot of fun filming it, and I hope you had a lot of fun watching it. The next video we're going to be having is the part 2 of this video. It'll be sometime next week, I'm not sure when. But stay tuned for that. This has been Erie Fishing, and see you next time.